Hello, everyone. My name is Ismail Shahtakhtinski, and I'm the principal immigration attorney at IS Law Firm. I apologize to everyone who thought this live stream is going to be at 2 p.m. We usually have weekly live stream on our YouTube, Facebook, and now on Twitter and LinkedIn channel as well, every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. This Thursday, our live stream was supposed to be at 1 p.m., but for some reason, I noticed that on the StreamYard, which is the streaming app that basically simultaneously streams this live stream to all of these different social media channels, had it scheduled for 2 p.m. I don't know what happened, but in any case, it's 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time now in Washington, D.C. area, and it is October 12th, 2023, and this is our weekly live stream on immigration topics. My name is Ismail Shahtakhtinski, and I'm the principal immigration attorney at IS Law Firm. I've been practicing immigration law for more than 16 years here in the United States, and I am licensed in multiple states, although immigration is a federal topic, so I can practice immigration law in all of the states of the United States of America and represent individuals from all over the world in connection to their immigration cases. So if you just joined us, thank you so much. This is our weekly live stream. Please like our channel. If you are on Facebook, like our Facebook page, like this stream, that I will greatly appreciate it. If you like these live streams, some of you guys join us weekly, and I appreciate it for all your questions. And please subscribe to our channel, and please send here your friends, relatives, acquaintances, somebody who may have questions about immigration into the United States, who may be bothering you with their questions because you may be in the United States. Then send them here. Tell them that this immigration attorney provides answers weekly to immigration questions every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Again, I promise to get back to regular schedule. But depending on my availability, sometimes it changes. I had an arbitration this morning that I thought was going to last longer. That's why we had to schedule it for 1 p.m. So thank you again for joining. Today, we will talk about green card lottery, also known as diversity visa lottery. If you have any questions about green card lottery process, you can post your questions in the chat section here on live stream or in the comments. I don't know if all of the comments from social media, from Twitter or LinkedIn and what else, Facebook, show up here in the chat section, but all of the YouTube comments, YouTube questions posted come up here on the chat section. So I will go one by one and answer all of the questions. Your questions do not necessarily have to be related to green card lottery process. It can be related to any immigration questions in any immigration process, and I will do my best to answer all of the questions within the next 1 hour. I was going to say 1 year. No, 1 hour. So this will last till approximately 2 p.m. Then I have another appointment. So what is green card lottery? You all have heard of it, and many of you have applied for green card lottery. Some of you may have been selected, maybe winners of green card lottery. So one of the questions that often comes up, what is green card? Why does the United States have this green card lottery process? It's also called as diversity visa. This topic was popular during Trump administration, where famously Trump was making fun of it and kind of disparaging the diversity visa lottery. There are lots of episodes on YouTube you can watch him talking about this and making jokes that this is a dumb or ridiculous thing that the United States does, and criminals come to the U.S. through diversity visa lottery. That's complete nonsense. That's not true. If you get selected through diversity visa lottery, some of you may have gone through that process, or somebody who went through that process. It's very thorough. It's very detailed vetting and background checks involved in the process. And it takes a long time until you're able to come to the United States. So for now, as you all know, the diversity visa lottery is open currently. It's going to be open till November 7th. So you can apply online, or anybody who can apply online. And this process that you apply for, the results will be known in May, but this is for 2025. So for the fiscal year 2025. So it will take a long time until the government does all the thorough background checks and so on. But what's the motive? What's the reason why the United States Congress came up with this diversity visa lottery? As the name suggests, diversity visa lottery, it is for diversity in the United States. So there are some countries in the world that that traditionally the citizens or people born in those countries traditionally have been flooding into the United States. There have been a lot of immigrants, much more than from many other countries in the world. And, some of those countries are geographically located close to the United States, like Mexico, Canada, some of the Central American countries, Southern American countries, and there are much more immigrants coming from those countries into the United States, and some of the countries in Asia, like China, Philippines, India. There are a lot more immigrants coming from those countries into the United States than from other countries. So that's why they created this diversity visa lottery, as the name suggests, with the main motivation to attract immigrants to the United States. As we all know, the United States is a country of immigrants where, everybody in the United States is an immigrant unless you're a Native American who was here even, before the New World. So the purpose is to attract immigrants from all over the world to keep the United States diversified. I think it's just my personal belief. There is also a second motivation in the diversity visa lottery process, is to demonstrate to the world that the United States is still open for immigrants, for anybody who has aspiration of coming and living in the United States, reaching the American dream. Because historically, that's how it's been. I mean, anybody who could get on a boat and arrive in Ellis Island up until the last century, they could go through just arrive. All you needed to do is just arrive at Ellis Island. Of course, you would go through some, medical examination and so on, but there wouldn't be any detailed background checks. I mean, unless, the government of the United States knew that you were, a known terrorist or spy. Basically, everybody else would go through the vetting process and medical exam, and were able to enter the United States. I'm not saying it was a nice process. There was some stereotyping. There were some, individuals with medical issues who now the United States accepts as, for humanitarian reasons, as long as they do go through treatment and so on. But anyway, I'm not going to go there. But basically, everybody could arrive in Ellis Island and become one of us. So now the Ellis Island is closed. Now there are difficult, processes, petitions. You need to find either an employer who's sponsoring you, or you need to have a relative in the United States who will petition for you, and so on and so forth. So basically, the gate to the United States is seemingly closed for everyone else. So my theory, I haven't read it anywhere. I mean, that might be true. I don't know, might be wrong. Is that part of the motivation, part of the reasoning behind the diversity visa lottery is to also, demonstrate to the world that we're not closing the gates to the United States. We're not disallowing anybody else to enter the United States. You have to go through the process. Obviously, we cannot let everybody enter the U.S. just like it was in the past through Ellis Island, but you still have a chance. So apply. Anybody in the world has a chance to come to the United States. Basically, that's the second motivation, I believe. Another question that I'm frequently asked is this real? Can you be, when you apply for this green card lottery online, you're sitting somewhere in the other part of the world and you're applying, filing it, is it real? Should you have hopes that you may be selected? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. There are many individuals. I'm one of them. I was selected through diversity visa lottery back in 1998. And then I went through the process, extensive background check, back and forth, medical exam. Back then, Azerbaijan was part of the Soviet Union. And then once it's collapsed, Moscow was the central immigrant visa processing for the U.S. consulate in Moscow was processing all of the immigrant visas. So I had to fly to Moscow, go through the immigrant visa interview, and eventually I came to the United States. I was still in the process of graduating, finishing my undergrad degree in Azerbaijan, and so I returned. I got the re-entry permit. I got my permanent residency, then returned back to Azerbaijan, finished my undergrad, then came to the United States in the year 2000, 23 years ago, and went to law school here, did my Juris Doctor degree, and became a lawyer here in the United States. So I am living example of someone who has been selected through this diversity visa green card lottery process. Now, aside from myself, now as an immigration lawyer who's been practicing for more than 16 years, I have handled, numerous cases for individuals, not only from Azerbaijan, obviously, from all over the world, for individuals who were selected through diversity visa lottery. There are families, there are even relatives from the same, basically, extended family who at different times back to back were selected for further processing through this green card lottery. So it is real. It happens. You should file it. You should file it diligently. You should file it for yourself, for your family member. I mean, as long as you want to immigrate into the United States. I don't want to encourage, people that don't want to immigrate to the U.S. to file it. But, since you're here watching my live stream on immigration topics, so you probably are interested in immigrating to the United States. So if you, your friends, your relatives, your family members want to immigrate to the US, you can file for this green card lottery, and do it now since the season for applying is open, and do it properly. And I'll go into that. Do it yourself. Number one, do not pay anyone. Do not hire anyone. Do not hire us. Do not hire anybody to file for your green card lottery, because it's just useless. You will spend, one of the simple reasons is you will spend more time and more efforts providing the information, for example, to me to fill out your diversity visa application online, than you would actually spend time and efforts and thoughts filling it out yourself. It's just simple. It's biographical information. Ask your name, birth date, place of birth, your family members, your address, your citizenship, and that's pretty much it. So it's biographical, simple information. If you hire someone to fill it out, there are two choices. You're going to have to do the same thing as you would do online, entering, by giving it to them so they enter it for you. Or if you don't want to give it, they're just going to put some nonsense on your behalf. And even if you get selected, you will go through the process hoping that you're going to get a green card, and you're not going to get it because whatever they entered was wrong. And even if you gave them the correct information, these people are going to make mistakes, right? It's just nature. So unless, you pay them a lot of money for the time they're actually spending on this, people are prone to mistakes when they don't bill you for what they do, or they bill you a little bit amount, which these diversity visa, service providers do, and so-called. And then you may ask, why are they doing it? Why there are some organizations that are doing free of charge? Because they are crooks. And here's what they do. Here's the scheme behind it. And I've seen that a lot happen to individuals. I've actually spoken to some of these organizations, individuals from those organizations, trying to convince them not to do that. So when you apply for a green card lottery, on the State Department's website, and I put that website here. It's on if you scroll down or up on the chat section, you will see there is a link for consultations. And there is also, again, I don't want anybody to be consulting with me on how to fill out the diversity visa lottery, okay? It's not something that you need to pay for to even ask. It's just simple. Just click on that link. You see there is a dvprogram.state.gov application. So that's the link where you just click, you fill out, you upload your photograph, right? So somebody says, oh, I'm lazy to do a photograph. Well, if somebody else fills it out for you, they're going to have to put a photograph for you anyway. So somehow you need to make a photograph. You need to have, and nowadays with your cell phone, with the apps that everybody has, you can actually make a photograph. You don't have to go to a, photo place that does these passport photos. You can do it at home. Just stand in front of a, white wall and do it, or have somebody help you do it. So you go there online and you fill it out. And once you fill it out, you put an email address for yourself. And that's the email address with which you can check the result of your green card lottery, whether you were selected or not, down the road. So for now, you can fill out now, but you're going to check in May. And then when you submit your application, you will receive a confirmation code. So the website will basically pop up with a confirmation code. You need to keep that confirmation code because you will use it in May to check if you won or not, if you were selected or not in this random selection. And if you don't have that code, the only chance you can get the result, find out if you were selected or not, is going to be the email address which you used when you filled out this application. So what these organizations and what these scammers do, they promise to do it free of charge for you, and they do it free of charge a lot of times, or for nominal fee. And they put their own email address, some hidden email address which you don't know, and they don't give you the confirmation code. And once they do it for 1,000 individuals, for example, and out of the 1,000 individuals, maybe 10, 20 get selected. I'm not saying, don't hold it against me, I'm not saying there is 1 or 2% to win. Maybe, I don't know, I'm just randomly saying. So let's say out of 1,000 people that they did, the scammers filled out this application forms, 10 or 20 get selected. So what these scammers do is they contact those 10 and 20 people, and then they tell them that, you were selected for the diversity visa lottery, but we are holding the confirmation code. There is no way for you, and they're right, there is no way for you to do anything with your diversity visa lottery selection unless you have the code or email. So they're saying we're holding it, and they hold it for ransom, and they ask you $10,000, $20,000 payment so that they give that to you. It's illegal, but they do it. There are many. The State Department is helpless. They cannot do anything about it because most of these individuals and scammers are abroad in in other countries, maybe in the country where you're from, and they do it. And it's not such a major crime for the State Department go through international channels and Interpol and so on to prosecute. So basically they do it all with impunity, and nobody punishes them, and they do it over and over. So that's number one thing, is unless you want to be held, your number, your green card selection to be held for ransom, then don't use any third parties to do that. What is the second problem that you have with someone else filling out for you? If you hire an organization or individual that is filling out your green card lottery application, especially again these scammers that do it so that somebody gets selected and they ransom out for the confirmation notice, they do it every year. They file it for you. Even if you don't ask them next year, they have your information. Again, it's just so simple that they don't care. They're going to put in and enter your information and then click submit. And a monkey can do it. You don't have to have anybody do it for you. So they'll do it for you, and you will, without your knowledge, you will have another entry next year. But what if you want to enter yourself next year? Next year, you now became smarter and decided that, okay, I'm going to do it myself, right? So next year, you're entering here, and those scammers that you used last year are entering also your information because they have your passport number. They have all of the information about you. Now you have two entries. And guess what? Look at the instructions, the diversity visa program. The State Department has, IT department, they have all kinds of highest level of equipment, AI who's detecting that, and they are eliminating both of those entries. So if you ever used at any point some organization or individual or scammer to-do list to enter for your green card lottery, you may basically lose your chance for life to ever being selected because those scammers, individuals or organizations, or it could be a relative who's actually doing it behind your back, thinking that they're helping you, and they don't know that you're also entering for the, making your own entry for the diversity visa lottery. In the end, basically, you basically make your chances zero to ever win because your entries, both of the entries, will be eliminated. That's what the State Department promises. I don't think they would do empty promises. Sometimes people underestimate the power of the U.S. federal government. I mean, you all have seeing what the U.S. federal government can do. They can find out what I had for breakfast this morning, or they can actually know what I told you guys during this, and nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's good. I'm glad that the U.S. federal government, our government, has this power, but don't underestimate. I mean, they do have the power to find these. There is now this significant struggle between the U.S. federal government, IT department, and the scammers in Mexico who are trying to circumvent the CBP-1 process. That's another topic. Don't want to overwhelm you with that. We had lots of live streams and videos on this. Subscribe to our channel and you'll see that. The CBP-1 is to enter the United States through southern border for the purpose of applying for asylum. That's an orderly process. I mean, they call it orderly process, but it's getting more difficult. And the scammers, the drug cartels, and individuals, smugglers, they're trying to circumvent it, use it. They ask people to pay them so that they can make their CBP-1 registration even before they arrive in Mexico, before the applicant arrives in Mexico. And that turns out horribly, because eventually the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the State Department, the DHS, they find those scammers first, and then they see which IP address they used for all these individuals. Anyway, one way or another, a lot of these people are getting caught. They're getting called, or they're called for questioning, interrogations, and so on. I'm talking about the beneficiaries here in the U.S. So bottom line is, scammer or not, friend or relative, I'm not saying don't use a relative or friend or your child or cousin who may have better understanding of the computer or smartphones to fill out the application for you. I'm not saying don't do it, but if you do it, make sure that they do it with you. You're present. You get to keep that confirmation code, and you get to see what they're entering. So if they make mistakes, or if they enter some wrong, I see so many times, I see individuals contact me. Every year I get people contacting me who got selected through diversity visa lottery, but they're saying, oh, I didn't enter my third child's information in there. What should I do? Well, nothing. You're probably not going to get. Most likely you're going to waste your time and money and fly to the consulate, wherever you are, and fill out all this. Some people start selling their properties that they got selected in the diverse, and in the end you're going to be burned. Because you did not do a diligent job entering a simple information, name of all your children, right? So name and information of all your children. The children are under 21, anybody who's under 21 and who is not a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. Now, if you by mistake enter a U.S. citizen child's name or information, or enter the information of a child who's over 21, that's not going to hurt your case. But if you miss information, if you don't enter your entire family members, then you will lose your chance. You will not be able to get your green card, your permanent residence in the U.S. through this process. And guess what? You will also lose chances of getting a visitor visa or a student visa in the future to come to the U.S. So basically, by doing all this, you may be shutting all the doors to the U.S. for yourself. And the reason you wouldn't be able to get a student visa or a visitor visa is if you go through immigrant visa application and then it doesn't work out for you, you're creating a presumption that you want to immigrate and permanently reside in the U.S. You actually took a lot of steps by that time, filling out your visa application forms and so on, which got registered now with the State Department, that showing that you want to immigrate to the U.S. Actually, not have an aspiration, but you actually took steps. You were getting ready to immigrate to the U.S. And that will ban you from a visitor visa or student visa, most likely. And the reason I'm saying most likely, it doesn't automatically ban you. There is no law basically saying that's it, you can never get it, but it will raise significant presumption, which will be hard to overcome. As a visitor, you have to demonstrate that you are not planning to live in the U.S. You don't want to immigrate to the U.S. at this time. You may have thoughts and ideas and aspiration, maybe down the road, give it a try, but at least now you are not supposed to be having immigrant intent. But if you applied for the diversity visa lottery and got selected and applied through the rest of the process, that is an issue. Now, if you just apply for a diversity visa lottery, for a green card lottery, don't get selected or get selected, and you don't take any other action, you didn't take any other action, then that does not create presumption of immigrant intent, okay? So there is anecdotal evidence. Some of you may say, oh, I know somebody who was questioned about whether they applied for a green card lottery. Yes, at the consulate, anybody can ask you anything. I mean, the consular officer can ask you anything they want to find out, to ascertain whether you have an imminent plans and desire to move to the US. And they can ask you, have you applied for a diversity visa lottery? They can. Again, I've never had a client who's been asked that, but I've heard some individuals telling me that they know someone who did that. I don't know how true it is, but that's not part of the regular interview process. And even if it is, the fact that you applied for a green card lottery does not automatically make you ineligible for a visitor visa, or even create any presumption of immigrant intent in the U.S. So apply to the green card lottery with confidence. Do it now, because the system, the State Department's website gets overloaded in the last several days, and I see lots of individuals who are unable to file it by the deadline because they waited for the last day or so to file it. So do it now, do it diligently, and make sure you follow the instructions. Again, they're very simple. You just upload the photograph, you put your spouse's name, your children's names, information. And the good thing is that if you are married, you and your spouse can file separate applications indicating each other as derivatives. So you will have 2 chances if you're married. And if you have children, your children will have actually 3 chances, as long as your child has a high school degree. So that one of the requirements, basically the only requirement, is that the child has to have high school degree. I mean, not just the child, anybody has to have either high school degree or 2 years of employment experience to be able to qualify. So, a child under 21 who graduated from high school may have 3 chances, because you and your spouse can file separate applications indicating the child, and child can file his or her own application on her own right. But they cannot include you as a derivative in their application, so it doesn't go up. It only goes down from the parent to the child until the child is turned 21 and is not married. So if the child is under 21 but married, they don't qualify as derivative beneficiaries through this process. Now, as I said, there is a list of countries which do not qualify. I'm not going to go through every single one of them. Those are the countries from where most of the immigrants come to the United States. I believe they're saying it has to be a country from where more than 50,000 individuals immigrated to the US. That doesn't include temporary protected status. That doesn't include work visas and so on. We're talking about immigrating, meaning getting green cards from those countries. So you'll look through those country list, and if you are a native of one of those countries, meaning you were born one of those countries, you don't qualify unless your spouse is from another country, and then you can use your spouse's place of birth, country of birth, to qualify. So you can still file it for yourself and your spouse. If you don't have a spouse and you're native of one of those countries that don't qualify, but your parents either didn't reside in that country when you were born. So for example, if you were born in India because your parents were diplomats there, or they were just passing by, or they were there for work or studies, and now you don't qualify, you can use your parents' country of birth for the purposes of diversity visa. Anyway, these are very narrow exceptions, don't apply to too many of you, so I'm not going to go further into that. But do file it. Don't use any services. Or if you use somebody helping you, make sure you're standing next to them, or you're seeing what they're filling out, or you trust this person completely, what they're doing. Otherwise, why do that? Why block yourself for future from ever immigrating into the U.S. or having every chance of being selected through diversity visa lottery? So I will now move on to answer all of the questions from our audience members. Thank you so much for everybody who already posted questions. But before I do, I ask everyone to please press like. It would be so nice for everyone who's watching us online, whether on social media, on YouTube, Facebook, whatever it is, please press like. That's just a click, but it means a lot to us, to me, for us to be able to spread the word about these important topics. People ask me, why am I doing this on the diversity visa specifically? I mean, the primary purpose, obviously, for any kind of social media channel for a lawyer or any business is to do marketing, right? There is nothing to hide this. But I also enjoy doing this, and more so with the diversity visa lottery, with the green card lottery. It's so personal to me because, again, I was one of those individuals who were selected through this program and immigrated here into the United States and have been living here for more than 23 years now. So that's also personal and close to me. And I don't want anybody screwed up by paying some crooks and scammers money to fill out the application forms, where it's so simple, so easy, you can do it yourself, and I don't want you to lose your chance. So that's why I am dedicated and committed to help you all and everyone who has this chance not to lose this chance, as long as, again, you are thinking about immigrating into the United States. Okay, so I will move on to answering questions. Ahmed writes, hello. Yes, hi, Ahmed. Yes, hi. Farid writes, hello, how F2 visa holder can change the status of the visa with work authorization, and what types of do you recommend to those holders? So F2 visa is a family member derivative of a student. A student visa in the United States is F1 visa. That's the primary type of visa status in the US for students, international students, and F2 is a derivative, spouse or child of that student. By law, by nature of that status, you do not have a work permit. So that's why Farid is asking, how can you change, to what other status I can recommend to change? So it's not about my recommendation. I mean, I recommend you to change it to green card. So what? It's not about recommendation. And that's often, I face this question when people consult with me. I tell them all the options. I tell them how it works, what is the process and so on. And based on the specifics of their case, what are the chances? And then after we talk, and then I hear a question, but what do you recommend? Okay, but it's not about me recommending you. I mean, I recommend you to win the green card in the lottery, or I recommend you to invest $1 million, create 10 jobs, and get a green card through investment. If you don't have $1 million, then how my recommendations help? I recommend that you get married with a U.S. citizen, but unless you have a true relationship with a U.S. citizen who, is sponsoring you, then what's my recommendation? I recommend to find an employer who's sponsoring you. But it's not about my recommendation. What you need to understand are the options, the types of visas available, the types of statuses you can change your F2 status to, and see what you can fit under, what is suitable for you. And then you can consult with an immigration lawyer individually on how this works, whether it will work, what are your chances, what is the process like, what needs to be done. So, and I recommend that to everyone who has, immigration questions that you are planning to consult with an immigration lawyer. Do your homework beforehand so that you spend your time most effectively. The immigration lawyer doesn't have much to say when you ask them, hey, how can I immigrate to the US? Well, there are so many different ways to immigrate to the US, but none of them can work for you. I mean, should we talk about, religious visas for imams and priests and rabbis? If you are not a religious, if you're not one of those, you're not in one of those professions, then what's the point of us discussing that topic? Should we talk about extraordinary abilities? Are you world known, or known, or do you have extraordinary abilities within your field of expertise, at least in your country or in the world? If not, then what's the point of us going to talk about all of those things? So what I usually do is I tell everyone to narrow down at least into categories. So there are different categories of immigration, right? So if we take major categories, there is immigration through family, right? Family reunification. So you have spouse, you have children sponsoring you, brother, sister. In some rare, narrow circumstances, there are laws, where a grandmother, grandfather can sponsor, or you may have a relative sponsoring one way or another. So that's family category. The second category is humanitarian, right? You have asylum, you have refugee process, you have, TPS, temporary protected status, you have parole program for various countries, like citizens of Ukraine can come to the United States through Uniting for Ukraine program, citizens of Venezuela, Cuba, and some other countries don't have all of that from memory, but they can come through the parole process where anyone in the U.S. can sponsor them to be paroled into the U.S. So there is this process that gives you work permit as well. So that's humanitarian. Again, asylum, all that. If you're a victim of crime, U visa. If you're a victim of trafficking, then T visa. So there are those exceptions. Or if you're a victim of violence, domestic violence, you may be qualified under VAWA, Violence Against Women Act. So those are humanitarian category. Then there is employment category. So you have employment-based permanent residency. You have work visa, H-1B. A lot of you know about this. You have O1 visa, which is also a type of work visa, but you have to demonstrate exceptional, extraordinary abilities. You have green card through extraordinary abilities. You have L1 visas for individuals who work for international companies and get transferred to the U.S. to either open a branch or work in the U.S. branch, in the U.S. affiliate. Then you have investment-based E2, which is you're creating a business. That's investment-based visa for citizens of certain countries. Most of the countries have that E2 treaty with the U.S. And then you have EB5, which is investment where you create through business and you invest $1 million in some areas. It's less than that. It's targeted areas and you create 10 jobs. So at least narrow it down to those categories so you don't talk about, as I said, religious visas or investment if you're not planning to invest. And then once you narrow it down, then it's easy for you to look at the requirements. You can look at the official websites, USCIS and State Department, to see what is required for E2 investor visa. You need to create a small business in the US. You need to have a business plan, source of funds. You need to spend substantial amount of money, which is typically, it's been $75,000, $85,000, $100 or more. So it's basically a visa for investment for small business owners in the US. So you look at those requirements and you see, okay, do I have or can I get a loan? Can I get somebody to lend me $75,000, $85,000? Do I have what it takes to open a business in the US? If yes, then it's worth to talk to an immigration lawyer specifically about E2 process. You will spend your time most effectively. A general question, what do you recommend for F2 visa holders to be able to work? That's too general. There is, we can spend days and days of time talking about all of the immigration possibilities in the U.S. And you're not going to get anything out of this. All right, so I hope my answer was helpful. I kind of went too far on answering because it applies to many of the questions. Okay, Nagio is asking, hi, when can I apply for a green card after asylum approval? Is it after 1 year or 6 months? Thank you. Well, thank you for the question, Nagio. That's very relevant question. So by regulations, the asylee, after they are granted asylum in the U.S., they get asylum status. Asylum is a refugee status. It allows you to stay in the U.S. You are under U.S. protection as a refugee. You're entitled to some privileges that even green card holders, regular permanent residents are not. And you can get a travel document which substitutes your passport, where the U.S. declares to the world that you are a subject of U.S., you are under U.S. protection, and so on. So getting asylum is great. But it's not a green card. It doesn't lead you automatically to citizenship. But by law, asylees are eligible for permanent residency, for green card, after 1 year of physical presence in the U.S. After physical presence in the U.S., you can become a permanent resident. Now, the question is, when can you apply for that green card? In the past, up until several months ago, maybe a little more, but anyway, up until this year, you had to wait 1 year before, make sure that you've spent 1 year physically in the U.S. after asylum so that you could apply for a green card, right? But the problem is, once you applied for a green card, the USCIS, due to their significant backlogs, takes almost 2 years now to process those green cards for asylees. And by the time the USCIS gets to your case, you not only 1 year, you actually spend 3 years physically in the US. And that's unfair because by law, you are entitled to green card 1 year later, as long as you don't violate the laws, you didn't commit crimes and so on, and you physically spent in the US. So the Biden administration has a lot of pragmatic things they did. They said, you can now apply because we have these backlogs, which takes a long time. You can apply anytime, as long as by the time we review your application, your adjustment of status, your green card application, you already satisfied that 1 year requirement. So to answer your question, Naji, now is that you can apply at any time. You can apply as soon as you get granted asylum. The next day, theoretically, you can apply. And practically, it will probably work out based on the current backlogs, because by the time your application is going to be in front of an actual officer who's going to be looking to see if Naji spent 1 year in the US so that I can approve his green card, by that time, you probably will spend more than 1 year. So you're not going to have a problem. That's practically. Theoretically, though, if the government improves their backlogs, which they are working hard on trying to, at least they're claiming to, but doesn't seem like it's working. But if they do improve it and magically they start processing it within 6 months instead of 2 years, which is now, then theoretically that officer will open your file 6 months from now and will see, oh, he didn't spend enough time in the US, so denied, file it again. So, and then you lose 6 months there, and then 6 months you have to wait. So my recommendation typically to our clients, it was 6 months of wait time, and that's where I think you're getting that 6 months thing. But now even we sometimes recommend 3 months after the asylum grant to wait for 3 months and then file. If you can wait 6 months, file it 6 months later, just to be on the safer side. Because if somehow your file goes faster than everybody else magically and it appears at the officer's desk, they can deny your case and you'll lose your filing fee, which is over $1,000, and you'll lose time. And if you had a lawyer handling the case, which is a good idea to make sure that everything in those forms match your asylum, that there is nothing inconsistent that's going to cause you significant problems. You don't want your asylum case reopened and re-reviewed. And that happens a lot. With citizenship and green card, people get granted asylum and then they no longer use legal services professionals to do it, and they file it on their own, and then they do provide either inconsistent answers to questions in the forms or orally, and then they get into trouble, and their entire asylum case is being now reconsidered, reopened, or they're placed in removal proceedings. So don't do it. Okay, Nejo, right? Could you please answer the questions? Yes, Nejo. I hope you liked my answer. El Bruce writes, what do you think about CBP-1 these days? Because I heard everyone how got CBP appointment all go to detention. No, that's wrong, El Bruce. That doesn't happen. Not everybody goes to detention. There are more detentions than it started with, but not everybody goes. There are rumors about this. There are lots of criminals. There are groups that circumvent the CBP-1, and there are smugglers who take people through the border illegally and try to convince them that it's better than CBP-1, which is absolutely not. First, it's dangerous. Second, you will probably have no chance of getting asylum if you cross the border illegally. Third, because of the transit ban, I'm not going to go into details of it. I do that almost every live stream. Third, it is illegal. It's a criminal violation of the federal law, and the U.S. government is now prosecuting those individuals. And there are individuals I know personally, individuals who have been put in federal prison and got federal crime record because they crossed the border illegally. So all of that combined, do not cross the border illegally, use the CBP-1 process. And a lot of rumors are misinformation by these groups, by the scammers, by the smugglers to hurt the CBP-1 program, because it's really seriously, cutting their bread and butter, those criminals and smugglers, because CBP-1 is the, as when it works properly, which mostly it does, but it takes now long wait times. And that's what the criminals are trying to take advantage of. But the CBP-1 is more orderly process where the U.S. government government knows who's coming in and you feel comfortable, you're not violating any laws if you do use CBP1 process, you're basically welcomed here to apply for your asylum, that you're claiming that you have basis for it, that you will be persecuted in your country. You're welcomed here, you're processed normally, orderly, you are not violating any criminal laws, any immigration laws by using the CBP1. You're actually authorized to enter the US and remain here throughout your immigration court proceedings. And then you have a chance to prove your case to immigration judge. And if the judge disagrees, you have a chance to appeal. And if none of that works, if they find out that you have a frivolous case or baseless case, somebody may have subjective fear that is not objective enough to qualify for asylum, then you will even have a chance to leave the US voluntarily, so that you can get the case dismissed and depart the US, or you can get a voluntary departure in certain circumstances where you're not going to even have a deportation order. Anything else, you may end up in trouble. You may get a deportation order, criminal violation, and so on. So when you say, I heard everyone who got CBP appointments all go to detention, don't ever hear things. Better to find out, better talk to either lawyers like me who are handling those cases a lot. We see who's going to detention or not, or talk to those individuals. But make sure you use reliable sources. Don't use any of the fake, as Trump says, fake news. There are lots of Russian-speaking websites. There are lots of Russian websites which are disinforming about this process. And part of it is these are the groups and scammers who do that. And part of it, I don't know, it's just for some reason Russians love disinform. I mean, don't want to stereotype all Russians, but it is. Most of the Russian channels and websites have so many disinformation. Sometimes I feel like, why are they doing it? I mean, at least if this is a scammer who's going to get something out of it. But sometimes I see things like disinformation on Russian news websites and channels, and it's I don't know, it's making my head hurt trying to find what's the benefit behind this. How are they going to make money out of this? Is it just because are they doing it just because they feel good? Scamming, providing false information to people. Anyway, I'm not going to go there, but I see sometimes that. Okay, next question is, hello, I'm F1 holder and currently am in the US. There is a section about mailing address. Should I write my US address or hometown address to this section? Put your US address. You're an F1 holder. You are in the US. Put your US address. You are now in the US. You have an address in the US, so put that. It doesn't really that much matter, but put where you live, where you sleep, wake up, on daily basis. That's your address for the purposes, not just on the DV lottery process, but all of the applications. I had a client recently telling me, I'm applying for citizenship, but I lived for some time abroad. I don't want to put that address because I didn't consider myself resident there. It's not about considering resident. In the forms that you fill out where it asks for your address, the place of residence, where you are, basically physical address, physical location, that's what you put there. There is nothing gray or uncertain about it. If you go to, a lot of times I have asylum clients who say that. They say, oh, I actually live in New Jersey, but they say, I live in Florida, I'm here, I'm working here, but I consider myself resident of California. That's why I'm going to tell the court that I live in California. I'm like, no, wait, this is not a gray question. It's just, where do you sleep at night? In Florida. Where did you sleep last night? Florida. Where did you sleep the night before? Where did you sleep the month before? Or where are you planning to wake up tomorrow? Right? Where do you come? Where is your address where you receive something that, you order a package from Amazon? Okay? And don't tell me about your mailing address that you use for like official mail. Anybody can do that. Use friend's address and so on. But where do you receive an Amazon package with, I don't know, with the toilet paper that you're going to use? Are you going to send it to Florida, or are you going to send it to New York or California that you're pretending you're? And federal government, again, is not dumb. They know this. So don't overanalyze the address. Address is where basically your address is where you are, where you physically. And sometimes the forms say physical address versus mailing address, in which case you can have a PO box for mailing address or somebody's address for the mailing address. But other than that, playing with address doesn't lead to much benefit. A lot of times people get caught and that damages their credibility, and then they suffer, they lose their entire case because of that. All right, Samo is asking, do you apply for lottery visa? No, don't ask for it. The time and the effort you took to join this YouTube stream and probably type this question took more knowledge and skill than it will take you to apply for that lottery visa. So go online, there is a link, just scroll up with your mouse, there is a link I posted there. It's dvprogram.state.gov. Give it a try, click on it and see what it asks. Okay, there is nothing complicated. Just ask your name, last name, address, family information. Okay, so no, we do not apply for lottery visa. We did in the past at one point many years ago. I was trying to help. Again, we are licensed immigration. I'm a licensed attorney, immigration lawyer. So, I didn't do any of those scams or applying for someone or holding ransom and so on. But, we don't do it anymore. I don't see the point. Okay, so if you know how to click buttons and type your name, which I see you do, then you can apply for it. Again, you can use a friend, relative, or son, or daughter, or cousin, or nephew who maybe know more and can help. Okay, and Najio says, thank you for your advice. And thank you for your question, Najio. And thank you for everyone for great questions. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, I apologize about the time difference. Our live stream is every Thursday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is Washington, D.C., or many call it New York time. I think officially, it's called New York time. But anyway, in the US, it's called Eastern Standard Time. So it's at 12:30 p.m. every Thursday. We have live stream where I talk about immigration topics, and then I answer questions from all our audience members. As it stands now, next Thursday is going to be on time, 12:30 p.m. So join us. On Tuesdays, because of the large clientele that we have from post-Soviet countries that speak commonly Russian language, we have a Russian-speaking YouTube channel where we have live stream every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. New York time every Tuesday. You can join that channel for live stream. That's in Russian language, and I answer all of the questions of the audience members in Russian language. All right. We have staff here that speaks many different languages. We have staff that speak Mandarin, we speak Turkish language, we have Azerbaijani, Korean, Uyghur language, Amharic language. But we only have YouTube channels for now in Russian and English languages. So please join us every week for all these live streams, and please don't leave before you click like. That will help us a lot. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the week and great weekend. Bye-bye.